Department of Justice says on some reservations, Native American women are murdered at a rate more than 10 times the national average, and many of those crimes go unsolved, but there's a growing push to help. The South Dakota legislature created the Missing and Murdered Indigenous Peoples Office last year, but it lacked the funding it needed to get off the ground.
After several months of waiting for state funds, the organization Native Hope, based out of Chamberlain, has stepped up to do so themselves. Our Austin Goss with that story tonight from the Peer Newsroom.
Native American women in South Dakota and across the country are faced with an epidemic of violence and unanswered questions. State lawmakers and Native Hope want to address it.
It becomes a catalyst for better things, more things to happen in the future. But felt like we wanted to get this going sooner than later, and this is that opportunity to do that.
The Missing and Murdered Indigenous People Office was designed to help tribal law enforcement agencies work with state and national authorities to solve crimes on reservations. But it needed a liaison officer to get off the ground. On Wednesday, Native Hope committed to paying $85,000 a year for the next 3 years to get the liaison position up and running.
The decision to fund the grant was a logical next step in our commitment to the issue that has been a pillar of our work for 7 years now. When we learned in the news about the difficulties in funding the office, we wanted to break down any barrier that existed. Breaking down barriers for Native America is central to Native Hope's mission.
While the bill that created the liaison office was passed last legislative session, efforts to fund it have fell flat. Attorney General Jason Ravnsborg recently told the State Tribal Relations Committee that while a bill creating the office had passed, funding for it had not come, creating an unfunded mandate for the Attorney General's office. Legislation to fund the office had been circulating, but for now is no longer necessary.
We have disparaging statistics that affect our most vulnerable population, the American Indian, Indigenous communities across South Dakota.
While the funding is another step in the right direction, much concern still exists about the efforts of the federal government.
The Oglala Sioux Tribe public safety is underfunded. The federal government only funds them 40%. So if you want to talk about resources, look to your federal government. This is an outstanding opportunity to bridge those gaps of all people coming together and saying, what can we do?
While there's no solid plan in place yet, the governor's office has said that it's a priority to make sure that the new office gets the funding that it needs once the 3 years from Native Hope is up. In Pierre, Austin Goss, Dakota News Now.